we really understand what pH is? Let's dive a bit deeper into this concept. Okay, let's start with the basics. How do we identify if a substance is an acid or a base? That's right, we use an indicator. But given two acidic solutions, how do we know which one is stronger amongst them? How can we judge how strong an acid or a base is? And that's what pH helps us with. It gives us the measure of the strength of acids or bases. How does it do that? The pH takes into account the concentration of H+ ions in the solution. Yes, the pH measures the strength of acids and bases. But you'd probably be thinking that if pH only considers the concentration of H+ ions, how can it tell us how strong a base is? Remember, bases also contain H+ ions. Just that the concentration of H+ ions is far lower than that of the concentration of OH- ions, so low that they are generally ignored. So to know how strong an acid or a base is, we have the concept of a pH scale. And it ranges from 0 to 14. 0 being very acidic and 14 being very basic or alkaline. And the pH of a neutral solution right here in the middle is 7. Understand that the pH is just a number which tells us how acidic or basic a solution is. More the concentration of the hydrogen ion, lesser will be the pH value. Yes, understand this well. More the concentration of the hydrogen ion, lesser will be the pH value. Now, if you look at the scale as we go towards the left, the pH value is decreasing, which means that if we go leftwards on this scale, the H+ ion concentration increases. And as we go rightwards, the H+ ion concentration reduces. And we know that higher H+ ion concentration implies that the solution is more acidic. So the acidic nature increases as we go towards the left. And as basic solutions have lower concentration of H+ ions, the basic nature increases as we go towards the right. So this pH scale is a very general way to understand how strong an acid or a base is. Let's take a very basic test to check if you've understood the concept of pH scale. I have two solutions A and B. Solution A has pH of 2 and solution B has a pH of 4. Which one is more acidic? Yes, solution A is more acidic as its pH is lower. Here's another one. Solution C has pH of 5 and solution D has a pH of 10. Which one is more basic? Note that solution C is acidic and solution D is basic. So relatively, solution D is more basic and we can see that its pH is higher too. A good way to remember this is to think of the first two letters of the English alphabet, A and B, acidic on the left and basic on the right. And don't forget, we still don't know how the number on the pH scale is calculated. That involves logarithms, since the pH scale we'd looked at in the first part of the video. The acidic nature increases as we move towards the left, and the basic nature increases as we move towards the right. Higher the concentration of H+ ions, lower will be the pH. And lower concentration of H+ ions will imply higher pH value. The pH scale basically tells us the strength of an acid or a base. The P in pH stands for potens, which means power or potential in German. We can understand it as the power of H+ ions. More the number of H+ ions, more acidic it'll be. Usually, a paper impregnated with the universal indicator is used to measure the pH. Before we understand what a universal indicator is, we need to have a basic idea of what indicators are. Substances which show the acidic or basic behavior of other substances by changing in some way are known as indicators. These are some of the common types of indicators. As the name suggests, indicators obtained from natural sources are called natural indicators. Litmus and turmeric are examples of natural indicators. Litmus is obtained from lichens. If you remember, an acid turns blue litmus paper red and a base turns red litmus paper blue. Substances which change their smell when mixed with acid or base are referred to as olfactory indicators. Onion and vanilla are examples of olfactory indicators. Paste or juice of onion loses its smell when added with base. It does not change its smell with acid. And the smell of vanilla vanishes with base, but its smell does not vanish with an acid. Do you know where they are used? They are used to ensure the participation of visually impaired students in the laboratory. Interesting, isn't it? What are synthetic indicators? Indicators that are synthesized in the laboratory are known as synthetic indicators. Phenolphthalein and methyl orange are two examples of synthetic indicators. Phenolphthalein is a colorless liquid and remains colorless with acid but turns pink with a base. Methyl orange is originally orange in color and turns red with acid and yellow with base. If you noticed, the following indicators only tell us the acidic or basic character of a solution, but it doesn't tell us the strength of the acid or the base. That's what brings us to the universal indicator. A universal indicator shows different colors over the range of pH values from 1 to 14 for a given solution. And it is available in the form of strips as well as solutions. This is how the color matching chart looks. pH value from 0 to 6 show acidic nature, and pH values from 8 to 14 show basic behavior. And a pH of 7 shows it's purely neutral. Let's see what colors some of the most common substances result in. Do you know the acid that forms in our stomach? Yes, gastric acid. It has a pH of about 1.2. And that tells us how acidic it is. Lemon juice has a pH of around 2.2 to 2.4. What about coffee? It has pH of about 5. It's weakly acidic. Distilled water has a pH of 7. Totally neutral. And human blood has a pH of about 7.3 to 7.5. Baking soda has a pH of around 8.3, which tells us that it's weakly alkali. Household ammonia has a pH of around 12. Yes, very alkali. And a sodium hydroxide solution has a pH of close to 14. Extremely basic. Does pH only have to do with solutions in the laboratory? Or does it also affect plants and humans in daily life? Did you know that when acid rain flows into the rivers, the overall pH of the water reduces? And living organisms cannot survive if the change in pH is too much. In such cases, survival of aquatic animals becomes difficult. What about survival of plants? What's the most important factor for the healthy growth of a plant? Yes, it's the soil. Plants require a specific pH of the soil for healthy growth. Plants cannot grow if the soil is too alkaline or too acidic. So if the soil is too acidic, its pH can be raised by adding lime, which neutralizes the excess acid in the soil. Similarly, if the soil is too alkaline, then its pH can be lowered by adding gypsum or some other substance which can neutralize the excess alkali present in the soil. And does it affect us too? By now, you should know that our stomach produces hydrochloric acid which helps in digestion. Sometimes, if too much acid is produced, it causes pain and irritation. It can even cause ulcers. In order to treat this hyperacidity, a patient is advised to take antacid tablets or antacid suspensions. And these antacids neutralize the excess acid. Magnesium hydroxide, a mild base, is often used for this purpose. And the reaction looks something like this. The acid is neutralized to get salt and water. What about the pH in our mouth? Yes, the pH in our mouth also has an effect on our teeth. Tooth enamel is the hardest substance in our body and does not dissolve in water, and mildly acidic solutions. However, it gets corroded slowly when the pH in the mouth falls below 5.5. But how does the pH fall below 5.5? When we eat food, some food particles remain stuck to the teeth. Bacteria present in the mouth produce acid by the degradation of the sugar and food particles present in the mouth. This is what causes decaying of the teeth. What's the best way to avoid this? We should clean our mouth after eating food. And something even better would be to avoid eating sugary foods. Cleaning the teeth using toothpastes help in preventing tooth decay. Toothpastes are generally basic and hence they neutralize the excess acid in the mouth and prevent tooth decay. The concept of pH also helps in understanding the self-defense used by certain animals and plants. If you've ever been stung by a honeybee, do you know what really caused that acute pain? Yes, it's the acid in that sting which caused the pain. So if we use a mild base like baking soda around the stung area, it gives us some relief. And in nature, there are leaves which have stinging hair and they inject acid upon touching them. Again, we use something which is basic in nature to get some relief. So these were some of the ways in which the concept of pH is used in daily life.